'Twas midnight when Duncan retired to his bed. Morbid thoughts filled Macbeth's head. He rushed outside to gather his wits, his conscience screaming to call it quits. Banquo and his son stood in the dim light. Macbeth's arrival gave them a fright. Banquo drew his sword and shouted,
"Who's there?"
"A friend,"
said Macbeth.
"Do not despair."
Banquo relaxed.
"I've been with the king. He sends to your wife this huge diamond ring."
Macbeth felt disgust at the thought of his crime.
"We could have done better if we had more time."
"I dreamt of the sisters."
Banquo replied.
"I think not of them."
Macbeth lied.
"We'll speak on this at a later date, but let's get some rest. It's very late."
Macbeth stood alone and gazed into space. A tormented look came over his face. He saw a sight he couldn't believe and staggered back.
"My eyes do deceive."
A blood-stained dagger hung in midair, twisting, turning, and taunting him there. He lunged for it, yet his fingers passed through.
"Oh, what in the world am I to do? This false creation I cannot explain. It holds such power over my brain. But I waste my breath, the deed must be fulfilled. With too many words, intentions are killed."
Just then, a bell tolled from the keep. Macbeth shivered.
"I hope Duncan is asleep."
The summons filled his veins with fire and beckoned him to achieve his desire. He crept like a shadow down the long, gloomy hall, his mind no longer his at all. His wife waited below, bold with greed.
"I've done my part, he's about deed."
The weapons were ready, everything was intact. All that remained was the final act.
Macbeth returned a ghastly white.
"This is indeed a sorry sight. These hands have taken the life of our king. Nothing will heal their burning sting. Through his chamber I did creep. A voice cried, 'Macbeth doth murder sleep.' It was a sound I did abhor, and still it cried, 'Sleep no more.'"
Lady Macbeth scoffed.
"Just let it be."
Her husband replied,
"I will never be free."
for in his efforts to reach his goal, Macbeth had murdered his very soul. His lady began to lose her cool.
"Why are you carrying the daggers, you fool? They're evidence."
She continued the fume.
"You ought to have left them in the room. Go smear the blood on each guard's face. They'll be suspected when daggers are in place. And wash that stain off from your hands. If you're caught, it will ruin our plans. Take them back now, I insist. Hurry now, or they'll be missed."
Macbeth shook his head.
"I'll go no more. What I have done I do deplore."
"Then I'll do the job. I'm not faint-hearted."
She seized the daggers and quickly departed. Macbeth heard knocking on the south gate. It shattered the silence and did not abate. He trembled with fear and paced to and fro.
"Why does each noise appall me so?"
Then his wife returned, her hands all red.
"They're of your color.
The lady said.
We'll scrub and scour our hands all clean. Duncan's blood will never be seen."